In this week's episode of the Nature Journal Show, I interview Melinda Nakagawa, and we get to see how she went from being a beginner nature journaler to starting a new club in the Monterey Bay Area. Coming up.
My name is Melinda Nakagawa, and I am a naturalist. I have a background in science, and I'm an educator. And I have started a nature journal club in the area where I live, which is in Monterey Bay, called the Monterey Bay Nature Journal Club.
Cool.
And I also teach classes to students and to older adult learners as well.
Great. So how did you first get started in nature journaling?
I got started, I was just thinking about that. My very first nature journal was in 1998. And at the time, I didn't know anything about nature journaling. I just knew that I was documenting things in nature. I was really interested in bird watching. I was learning how to identify birds. And so I was really excited when I went out on my bird walks to keep a list of who I saw and a paragraph about like the experience of, what it was doing. And at the time, I didn't have any drawings in it. I wasn't comfortable with my drawing skills. So it was just like the name of the bird and some reflections. And over time, I started to sketch little pictures and put some pictures in there. And I got my first, I called it a nature journal. Never heard the word before, but to me, it felt like I was journaling and it was in nature. This is my nature journal. And my husband got me a book by Claire Walker Leslie, and I also got Hannah Hinkman's book. And so I remember being really inspired, thinking, gosh, there's someone else who nature journals. And so that's when I started to do some sketches in my nature journals. But it wasn't until fast forward a few years, I went back to school and I was taking some classes in biology. So we did biology labs. So we were doing a lot of dissections and, more scientific kind of descriptions and drawings. And so that kind of colored the way that I viewed my nature journal. And then fast forward a few years ago, I found John Muir Laws and, got his book. And I actually didn't see any of his videos until recently, but just being really inspired by his book.
Yeah.
And then, changing the way that I nature. So I think I've had a lot of teachers and mentors and books along the way. And, other teachers and workshops that have given me ideas to incorporate into my nature journal.
Wow, that's so cool. 1998 is pretty OG for nature journaling. So that's exciting. So it sounds like in some ways, do you remember, like, it sounds like birding was your entree into journaling in that way. Do you remember anything
Yeah.
else that kind of started you on that path?
Oh gosh. Yeah, it was birding. Actually, I think my very first entry that I can find in one of my little journals was from a whale watching trip. I used to live in the Bay Area and I came down to Monterey. I went on a little boat that went out into the bay and we saw lots of marine mammals, and that was so exciting to me that I wanted to remember that time. And so I wrote down everything that we saw. And I think that was the first entry, but at the time I was also birding. So, birds were my primary subject in my nature journal in the beginning.
Got it. So were you using journaling for other things at that time or before that time?
That's a good question. I think that I was doing like I kept a personal journal, with
Right.
mostly words and reflections.
Mhm.
And that was separate from the nature journal.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think that I didn't do any other kind of journaling. Those were the two.
Got it. So what was your main goal when you before that whale watching trip, when you decided that you were going to take a journal? What did you think it was going to do for you?
At the time, I was switching careers. So I really got this bug to want to study marine biology. And I never went to college out of high school. So I was soaking up information about marine animals wherever I could. And the Nature Journal really helped me document the things that I was learning, whether it was scuba diving and seeing cool things, or going to the zoo or an aquarium. I would use that journal to as a place to just put my reflections about the cool things that I was seeing.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever use like a journal like that for any of your other subjects?
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, I was a avid note taker. So part
Mhm.
of the way that I remembered things in school and lectures was to write lots of notes, and I drew pictures next to my
Mhm.
notes, and I used different colored gel pens to
Mhm.
signify different
Nice.
topics. So actually, I
Yeah.
hadn't really thought about that till now, but yeah, I would keep detailed notes, and my notebooks it almost gave me a photographic memory
Uh-huh.
by placing information on color on the page. For example, maybe a comparison study of I don't know, two different systems in your body,
Uh-huh.
and that we were comparing. I would do one on the left side of the page and one on the right side of the page, and do different colors. And when I did that, my brain was able to separate those two systems. So when we had an exam, I can kind of remember, it's like, oh, right, it was on the left-hand side of the page, so it must be from that system.
Nice.
So I knew back then that using a notebook and taking notes, there was something powerful in that that was really helping my memory and learning.
Cool. Wow. Do you still have some of those notebooks and
Yeah,
journals?
I do. I do. Actually, I'm trying to clear the clutter, and I came across some of these notebooks, and I thought, what am I going to do with this? But I couldn't
Uh-huh.
throw them out.
Wow, that is really exciting. And so then, so it sounds like you got those books from Claire Walker Leslie and Hannah Hinkman, and then you learned about John Muir Laws, and saw you went to some of his classes, or you got his book. What?
Yeah, actually, I first got Jack's book probably in 2016.
Uh-huh.
2017, but I didn't delve into it too much because just at that time my work was shifting and I wasn't doing very much nature journaling.
Mm-hmm.
But the first time I met Jack was at Wild Wonder, the nature journaling conference held
Mm-hmm.
in Pacific Grove last September, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a workshop for teachers that he did at the
Oh
aquarium
yeah, that was
right
great.
before the conference. It
Yeah.
was a conference kickoff, and I was just so deeply blown away. And
Yeah.
it felt um, like a brother, right? Like he
Yeah.
was a brother. He was doing what I was really passionate about, but I was doing it alone,
Uh-huh.
and I had no other friends or comrades or community around me. And so when I saw him, I just, like, my whole heart lit up and was so excited. And I met you there
Uh-huh.
and met a whole lot of people. And I think that was a really important part of my journey, is coming together at a conference with 300 plus other avid nature journalers. That
Mm-hmm.
really shifted something inside me.
So then you just immediately decide you want to start a nature journal club after that, or?
You know what? Actually, during the talk, when Jack was talking, I can't remember exactly what he said. I was really feeling inspired that I really want to be doing this with other people. Like, it was
Mhm.
important to me that I wanted to share it, and not by myself. And I think it was over the course of the first day of the conference, I think I ran into you, Marley, and you
Mhm.
said, "Hey, you should start a nature journal club." And I thought,
Uh-huh.
"Oh my God, I couldn't possibly do that." I'm thinking, I
Uh-huh.
don't have the credentials or whatever it is. But then I really got to think about it, and this feeling in my chest just kept, like, it was burning, right? Like, I
Uh-huh.
felt like, that when you need to just say something. And
Yeah.
so I took that as this response that, like, my system really needs me to do this.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so I walked over to Jack and I said, I really want to do this. How do I get started? And he was so generous with his time, and he sat
Yeah.
down with me and gave me lots of feedback on how I could start. And I pretty much rode that wave, that high, that I
Yeah.
had from Wild Wonder, and I set up a nature journal club here in my own backyard.
Wow, that's really cool. So it sounds like you there was a feeling. I mean, it sounds like obviously the conference and being around other people who are nature journaling and recommending that you start a nature journal club was really impactful. And then it sounds like it was actually a feeling that you had that led you to go through with it. Does that sound correct?
Yes. Yes. I think it's like in my head, the logical mind wanted to do it, but it was, it kind of takes a leap of faith and it can be
Right.
kind of scary. But I felt something in my body, just like, I
Hmm.
don't know, it was like energy bristling, just telling
Right.
me, like, you've got to do this.
Yeah. So what were some of your logical reasons for wanting to start one?
I wanted to start one because I guess I wanted to share that experience with others.
Hmm.
I'd spent a lot of years nature journaling with nobody else nearby wanting to do it with me. And so I didn't see the value in it. Like, I knew
Hmm.
the value of nature journaling in my life
Right.
and how it changed me, but I didn't have the language or the confidence to just go out and say, this is really great stuff, come on and
Right.
join me. So I think it was having the community of other people, seeing Jack and hearing him talk and meeting other folks that really got me inspired.
Wow, cool. So do you have family?
I do have family.
Uh-huh.
And are you wondering if they nature journal?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
So
Actually,
how do you
my
feel
daughter does
about
a little.
so you what?
My daughter does a little,
Your
yeah.
daughter? So you have a daughter and what is your family like? What's your family composition like?
So my husband and my daughter, who's 14, and so it's the
Hmm.
three of us who live together with our animals.
Okay, great. So how do you feel about nature journaling with your family or how has that ever come up or have you ever had
Yeah,
to explain? It sounds like your husband was supportive and he found those great books.
yeah, yeah.
What would you say about nature journaling with family? Like what are your thoughts or feelings around
I
that?
would love I would love for us to do it together. It is not something that appeals to my husband.
Uh-huh.
So, it's something that I just do. Like, I feel like
Mhm.
nature journaling comes out of my pores. It just
Mhm.
really feeds me and it excites me. And, and I, and I incorporate it in all the classes I teach. I
Mhm.
work with kids, preschool age kids to older adults. And, even if the topic is not nature journaling, I always bring a nature journaling component into the class because I know it's so powerful that it helps the learning, and
Right.
deepen the learning and understanding.
So you teach a lot of different types of nature connection classes. Is that right?
Yeah, I do. I teach various classes. I have homeschool students. I've also have taught in private schools and public schools.
Hmm.
And I also teach for community classes for lifelong learners, so older
Hmm.
adults.
Hmm.
And they encompass things from tide pool. I have a background in marine biology, so marine biology based topics or birding topics.
Hmm.
And most recently, I've been incorporating, starting to do more strictly nature journaling classes as well.
Cool.
And with kids, it would be like nature awareness, nature connection. So we'd be outside in nature all day long and
Hmm.
exploring the wild.
Cool. So how do you feel? I've worked a little bit in nature connection,
Mm-hmm.
nature awareness sort of education programs and circles. How do you feel nature journaling fits into that? Or do you think that the nature journaling modality is used much in that field? Or what are your ideas about that?
Yeah. So I teach at a school that where we were outside, and so we're doing like tracking and looking for wild edibles, and we're
Hmm.
climbing trees and using a knife, and doing all kinds of really rich nature outdoor kind of activities. And
Hmm.
in the group that I have, we use the nature journal to take notes about how can we build, how we build a fire, or
Hmm.
are we safe with our knife, how do we identify the different edible plants and which
Hmm.
ones are the hazards. So I think that in that way, it works really well to help the learning for students, and then it becomes a like a handbook. You know, they can go back and look at what they've learned in the course of a year. I know it can be hard to have a nature journal on you all the time. So when I'm
Right.
teaching with the nature connection, I have a small pocket-sized journal, and
Mhm.
sometimes my journal entries are from memory. So
Mhm.
I'll be outside teaching, so I can't really sit down and journal in certain
Right.
areas. So a lot of it I have to shift the way that I observe, and really like observe and record in my mind's eye.
Mhm.
So, you know, that's like kind of seeing it in your mind, like when you close your eyes, and just imagining seeing what it is that you want to record, and then coming back in the evening or after the class and then recording what it is that I saw. So it's
Cool.
just, you know, I just shift the way that I nature journal when I'm in different places.
So it sounds like the nature journaling perspective can be applied to a lot of different areas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think it could be applied to any subject,
Mhm.
really. You know, I mean,
Cool.
not just nature. Yeah. Well, like, for example, you know, my classes, like science classes, you know,
Yeah.
or even, you know, anthropology, whatever it is that you're studying,
Mhm.
you can incorporate like those notes and sketches together to deepen your learning.
Wow, that's so cool. So, what do you think is the difference? What has been different for you between teaching and leading a nature journal club?
Mm. That's a good question. I think that when I was doing the Nature Journal Club in person, we would gather outdoors. It was always outdoors with local people. We didn't get
Mhm.
people that really came too far. And I would do just a short demo. I would really step back from, like, I didn't really want to be teaching. Like, I
Mhm.
didn't feel like I was an expert. I just didn't want to give that impression that, you know, I'm an expert expounding in, you know,
Mhm.
knowledge to you.
Yeah.
My teaching style is really more, you know, relaxed and inclusive, and it really is like I am also a learner, right? You know,
Mhm.
so I'm not the expert that's like giving. I know a lot of what about the subject I'm teaching, but I'm
Mhm.
not, you know, having you put me on a pedestal, you know, to say
Right.
this is the word. So in person, I would just give maybe a prompt and some ideas, and then we'd go off and do our sketching and come back, and I give you know, positive feedback on the
Mhm.
drawings to people. Like, so I've learned that as an educator, you
Mhm.
know, not to just say, hey, that's nice, but, you know, really like look at what is it that this person saw in nature and what did they incorporate into their page, so that I can
Mhm.
give them some really, you know, great constructive and positive feedback. Um, and how is that different from my regular teaching? Um, I guess there's more content that's delivered in a class. You know, it's
Mhm.
more structured, so I have an idea of like these are the kinds of things that I want to address, so that, you know, the people in the class are taking something away from specific away from that hour, or however long it is that we're on together.
Cool. So, what kind of stuff would you recommend for people who are interested in starting their own nature journal club?
Yeah, if you are interested in starting a nature journal club, just do it. Like, I would say, if you think about it too much, you're, so this is how I view it. If I had thought about it too much, then I'm going to let my, oh, you know, some people call it the ego, or, you know, resistance, or,
Mhm.
you know, your protective self, you know,
Mhm.
that voice is going to get louder and come up with 1,000 reasons why I shouldn't start a nature journal club. So if
Yeah.
you feel it in your heart, like if somewhere in your body you feel like, I want to start one, then I would just say, go for it, because you can do it. Like, you know,
Mhm.
I did it. And, you know, I know some other folks that have started nature journal clubs in their area too. So you are not alone. And, you know, John Muir Laws has a lot of really great resources on his website. There's an entire page that talks about, you know, some suggestions on how you can start your own nature journal club.
Yeah.
And you know, you can even contact him, you know, if you wanted to talk to him, or talk to other folks who have
Mhm.
nature journal clubs, you know, and to get their feedback. The way that I've structured mine is different from other people, so it would be nice to, you know, maybe explore and find out what options there are, and see works for you
Mhm.
individually and what fits in your life. The one thing I would say is, find a time slot and a time frame that works for you, and that you don't have to form it in a particular fashion.
Mm.
The main Nature Journal Club in the Bay Area, led by John Muir Laws, is once a month on Sunday, and it's all day.
Mhm.
And I just know that with a child and the kind of schedule I have,
Yeah.
that I would love to Nature Journal all day long, but that doesn't always fit in my life. And
Yeah.
so my intention with the Nature Journal Club was to create short pockets of time where we can gather together so that people don't have to feel like they have to block out a whole day. So for Monterey, I think they were 3 hours. We would get
Mhm.
together, just journal for a little bit, and inevitably people would stay longer. But I wanted
Yeah.
to make it so that it was, something easy to commit to, right? Because we're
Mhm.
all busy. We have a
Yeah.
lot of things on our plate. So I wanted it to make it accessible to the people and to make it accessible, the location and also the length of time. And I personally chose Sunday mornings and Friday afternoon. So I chose to do 2 days in 1 month, just
Mhm.
to give an opportunity for people who maybe
Mm.
want a Friday and those who want a Sunday.
Mm.
And so that's what worked for me for a few months until I shifted. The last week in March, I started to do weekly Nature Journal Club meetings, and it's every Sunday. It's still going on every
Mhm.
Sunday at 9:30 in the morning Pacific time. And the cool thing about that is I people from around the world have hopped
So
in
cool.
and joined the community, and it's such an amazing feeling to like see these faces of people from Germany or
Mhm.
Sweden or the UK, as well as New York and Washington. Those people would never be able to come in
Yeah.
person. So I almost feel like not that it's better, but it's totally different experience, and it just really is really exciting, that we can connect with people all around the world to share this experience together in this 3-hour time block.
Yeah, that's so neat how that benefit has come from switching to online. So what would you recommend for it sounds like you've mentioned accessibility and you've mentioned like the benefits of community. What do you recommend for people who don't live anywhere where there's many nature journalers and who are trying to build how can other people get some of the benefits of a nature journaling community online?
um, they could create something online
Mhm.
for themselves, for their community. They could, until they're able to do that, join another online community that exists.
Mhm.
So mine is on Sundays. The Great Valley Nature Journal Club is also
Mhm.
there on Saturday mornings.
Mhm.
So, I would encourage you to hop on to some online Nature Journal Club, and perhaps there's others,
Mhm.
around the world. I would maybe check with that map that John Muir Laws has on his website, or maybe it needs to be
Mhm.
updated to include virtual meetings too, so
Yeah,
that,
an interesting point.
and I think that possibly joining in on a virtual meeting that already exists, you get the sense of the community, what it feels
Mhm.
like, and maybe getting a sense of how you might want to run it or might not want to run it, right? Just getting a sense of like, what does that feel like? Because when you're in person, you don't really have the opportunity to go check out other people's nature journal clubs, right?
Yeah.
But when you're online, you get a sense of like, oh, everyone is different, and that yours is going to be unique to you.
Wow, that's really cool. I think the way that you explain it makes it really clear that there's not like a strict mold for a nature journal club, and that people can really make one that they should be creative about how they design theirs to fit their own needs. Wow, that is really cool. So I think this is really going to help people who are interested in starting their own nature journal club or tapping into some of the online community around nature journaling. What are some places where can people find out more about what you're doing and about your nature journal club? I can put links in the description below, but could you just
Yeah.
just describe like where's the best place to
Sure.
follow you?
Okay, so one place is on Facebook. I have
Mhm.
a Facebook group. It's called the Monterey Bay Nature Journal Club group, Facebook group.
Mhm.
And if you're not on social media, you can go to my website. It's sparkinnature.com. I am currently updating my website, but I do have the Sunday nature journaling information there. So you can go to my website and get the link and the password. And you'll also find my email there as well. If you have any questions, I'm happy to, give you any tips or answer any questions you have about starting your own nature journal club. And you can start small. You can just start with a couple friends. Maybe you and somebody else just go out once a week or however frequently you want to. Because I think that when you have a buddy to do this with, it's more fun, right? And
Yeah.
you have a carpool buddy possibly,
Yeah.
and B, there's this like level of I can't think of another word, but accountability comes first.
Yeah.
That feels kind of harsh. So what I wanted to say is like, it's more like, you're inspired to go out, right? Like you
Mhm.
don't want to let the other person down,
Yeah.
working together. Because yeah, certainly there are times where like, yeah, I don't really want a nature journal. But if I know that I'm going to have a group or joining a group, then I know that I'm going to keep doing that, because it really is like a daily practice, right? To stay warmed up and just to keep that connection, your
Mhm.
eye, your brain, or your hand working, and keep developing those observational skills, and having being connected. And I just lost my train of thought, so I
No,
think
that's great. So this interview is going to come out on a Wednesday evening. So
okay.
people who watch this could potentially, when they if people watch this when it first comes out, they could potentially go to your next Friday. You have a Friday. What'd you say?
Oh,
Friday?
actually, no. So during the shelter in place, all
Right.
of the Nature Journal Club events are on Sundays,
Okay.
on Zoom. Yeah,
Okay. So Sunday mornings.
9:30 Pacific time.
Okay. Cool.
So, well, let me just tell you the format that I use
Yeah.
that I think works really well to combine technology and nature
Yeah.
is we log on at 9:30. I do a demonstration and introduce a practice that we can include into our nature journaling and in an activity, and then we log off about 10:15 or 10:30. Then we have about an hour to go nature journal in your nearby nature. So it could be in your kitchen with your fruit bowl, or on your front porch or in your backyard. And
Mhm.
then I usually offer an activity or a prompt. And
Mhm.
then after that hour, we all come back on at 11:30, and we do a journal share for those who want to share. And it's a really great time to harvest some really great
Mm.
ideas from everybody's journals. And
Yeah.
we have reflections, and then we close. So
Yeah.
I think it's a nice blending of using technology to build the community, but also having time in nature to do our journaling.
Yeah, that's such a great format. I love that. Jack was the first person that told me that you were doing it that way, and I was just like, wow, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Melinda, thank you so much for sharing all of these great ideas and
Sure.
motivation for people who want to start their own nature journal clubs. I know I'm really inspired by all of the work that you're doing and all the value you're providing for the nature journaling community. So I'm really grateful for all of that stuff that you're doing. And yeah, this has been a really great conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
If you got something out of this video, give it a like down below and subscribe to my channel for more nature journaling content every week. And if you can't wait all the way until next week for the next episode of the show, check out these two videos here.